Let's talk about Iron Man's Marvel Rivals costume, Steam Power, and its origin in Marvel Comics. This suit was first introduced back in Marvel Rivals Season 1, but not everyone knows that it's actually based on a very real comic book story, one pulled straight out of Marvel's own history. Surprisingly, this version of Iron Man comes from a storyline that takes place during the events of Secret Wars in a comic called 1872. So let's dive in. During Secret Wars, Doctor Doom, now known as God Emperor Doom, creates Battleworld, a patchwork planet formed from the remnants of destroyed universes. One of the zones on this strange planet is called the Valley of Doom. It's here, in a gritty little Wild West town named Timely, where our story begins. Before we break down the comic book origins for Iron Man's Steam Power Marvel Rivals costume, then make sure to let me know in the comments who is your favorite Marvel Rivals character and what is your go-to costume for them. Also, if you like this kind of content, hit like button and be sure to subscribe. Anyway, back to 1872. This is set in a Western-themed version of the Marvel Universe. Here, our favorite characters have been reimagined as outlaws, sheriffs, and settlers trying to survive in a harsh, lawless land. And this is where we meet Tony Stark. Not the billionaire playboy in a high-tech suit, but a broken, drunken genius who's buried his past in booze. But more on him in a bit. The town of Timely was once peaceful, until the discovery of gold and silver triggered a massive gold rush. Enter Wilson Fisk, yes, Kingpin. He rises to power by playing the role of peacemaker and becomes the town's so-called heroic mayor. But don't be fooled, Fisk is working directly under the thumb of Governor Roxxon, a corrupt and greedy industrialist. Governor Roxxon built a dam to reroute the river and support his mining empire. But in doing so, he cuts off the water supply to nearby native territories. That's where Red Wolf comes in. He tries to destroy the dam to return water to his people, but is quickly captured by Fisk's men. These guys act like they're untouchable, making it clear that they believe they are above the law. But there's one man standing in their way, Sheriff Steve Rogers. Sheriff Rogers demands justice and insists that Red Wolf receive a fair trial for his crimes. But Fisk doesn't care about the law. He wants Red Wolf lynched, immediately and publicly. Rogers won't back down. He locks Red Wolf up in the local jail cell and warns Mayor Fisk that the law applies to everyone, even him. The tension between these two men, one driven by power, the other by principle, sets the stage for everything that follows. That's when we're introduced to Tony Stark. In this world, Tony is the town drunk, always slumped at the bar or tinkering with gadgets he barely remembers building. But underneath the booze is a haunted mind, a man who once created weapons so powerful, he swore never to touch violence again. We learn that 10 years earlier, in 1862, Stark designed the Stark repeating rifle. It was meant to end a war quickly by intimidating the enemy and forcing them to surrender. But it ended up being used in a brutal massacre. That blood is on Tony's hands, and it's what sent him spiraling into alcoholism. Since then, he's refused to build anything resembling a weapon. Back to 1872, and Stark is currently being a drunken nuisance, and Fisk's men decide to rough him up. Tony gets caught in a confrontation with Fisk's men, and Sheriff Rogers steps in once again to protect him. A short shootout breaks out between Rogers and Fisk's goons. Amid the chaos, Rogers demands to know why Stark doesn't use any of his inventions to defend himself. Tony shrugs it off, admitting that he has plenty of brilliant devices, but ever since he swore off weapons, most of his inventions have just been creative ways to conceal alcohol. But when push comes to shove, Tony shows he's still got some tricks up his sleeve. He quickly rigs together an improvised trap using a pool of water and electrical cables, zapping one of Fisk's bugs on the spot. It's a sharp reminder that, even drunk and half broken, Tony Stark is still one of the smartest men in the room. But it turns out this entire scuffle was just a distraction. While everyone's focused on the gunfire, Fisk's men try to drag Red Wolf out of the jail to lynch him. Rogers shuts that down fast. He fights off Fisk's men and strings them up by their hands outside Fisk's casino as a warning. Naturally, Fisk is enraged, and things only get worse when Governor Roxxon tells him that he'll take care of the problem himself. He sends in hired killers, Bullseye, Elektra, Grizzly, and Doc Ock. Now the stakes are raised. Judge Nelson refuses to grant Red Wolf a fair trial, showing just how deep Fisk and Roxxon's corruption goes. With the law crumbling around them, Rogers and Red Wolf prepare for a final standoff. The shootout is explosive. Red Wolf defeats Elektra, Rogers kills Doc Ock, Grizzly is severely injured, and Rogers manages to pin down Bullseye at gunpoint. Sheriff Steve Rogers stands up and calls on the townsfolk to open their eyes, to see the truth about the corruption throughout Timely. But Bullseye pulls a hidden gun and shoots Rogers through the back. Just like that, the town's last true defender is gone. And Fisk, he throws Steve's body into a pig pen to be eaten. It's one of the most brutal and symbolic moments in this comic. Tony Stark tries to avenge Steve, but he's still too drunk. He's swinging his gun around, but his aim is awful. The townswomen beg him to stop before he gets himself killed. That's the final straw for Tony Stark. He returns to his workshop, picking up his hammer and repeating that iconic moment where we see Tony Stark working away throughout the night. He is about to turn the tide for the people of Timely. For the first time in a decade, he's forging a weapon again. Natasha Barnes, the widow of Bucky Barnes, and Bruce Banner help to hide Red Wolf. Natasha and Bruce attempt to carry out Red Wolf's original mission. They head to the dam with the intention of blowing it up, restoring the water flow. Red Wolf, meanwhile, returns to town to confront Fisk. But before he can finish the job, he's ambushed. He's cornered and down to only one bullet. Bullseye taunts him from outside the casino, but Red Wolf takes the shot and lands a perfect headshot, taking out Bullseye once and for all. Red Wolf proceeds to hurl an oil lamp at Grizzly, scolding him. He lands a solid hit on Elektra before realizing he's cornered once again, completely defenseless. He attempts to hide but is quickly caught by a furious Grizzly, who slams Red Wolf to the ground and pins him down holding a gun at point blank range. Grizzly tries to finish Red Wolf off, and that's when the ground shakes. A blinding light bursts from the main street, and a monstrous, steam-powered suit stomps into view. Tony Stark has arrived. The armor is crude, bulky, and terrifying. The townspeople stare in awe. This isn't the sleek Iron Man armor we're used to. This is raw metal and boiler-powered fury. Tony unleashes flames, incinerating Grizzly, then shields Red Wolf from a wave of bullets. Red Wolf stares, completely stunned, and asks, "Tony, what are you wearing?" Tony replies, "My coffin." This Western-style Iron Man suit is a force of nature, and this is what directly inspires the steam power costume from Marvel Rivals. Fisk offers a reward to anyone who can stop Stark, but pistols are useless. Tony growls, "Go home and sleep in your beds, or die in the streets." Then turns to Red Wolf and sheepishly asks, "Was that menacing? Did that sound cool?" At this point, he's still hungover and dehydrated, and is fully aware that the majority of the town is after them, since Fisk set a bounty on their heads. Carl Creel rides in looking to claim that bounty, and Tony swings a massive punch, only to accidentally hit Creel's horse, knocking it to the ground. Tony can barely see out of his suit of armor after admitting that he cut the eye slits way too small. Meanwhile, Natasha and Bruce succeed in blowing up the dam and the water returns to the land. Red Wolf and Fisk finally brawl in the middle of the street. Red Wolf stabs Fisk in the eye with Sheriff Rogers' badge, but before Fisk can be arrested, Natasha appears and shoots Fisk in the head. With Fisk dead and Roxxon's grip broken, the town begins to heal. Tony sobers up and rebuilds Stark Industries. Carol Danvers and Red Wolf help lead a new town council. Timely finally has a chance at peace. So there you have it, the full comic book origin of Iron Man's steam power costume from Marvel Rivals. If you enjoy playing as a version of Tony Stark that is too drunk to aim straight and crudely built an armor that he can barely see out of, then this Marvel Rivals costume is perfect for you. And if you're still craving more Marvel Rivals content, then make sure to check out my Marvel Rivals playlist, or check out the rest of my channel where I upload Marvel content just like this every single week. But for the meantime, peace, peace, peace.